Philippa Boyens. She's one of those people that had read Lord of the Rings like once a year, every year, since she was 16 years old, and knew everything about Lord of the Rings.
One of the greatest things I got out of this experience, and it wasn't being able to work on these books, which I love so dearly.
Well, you don't love them anymore, do you? Who remembers when Tolkien fans still had hope that we could have nice things? Because that was a long time ago. Philippa Boyens has returned to Lord of the Rings, and she fucked it. When it was announced that WB would be creating an animated story for Helm Hammerhand, I was very excited. Helm is a very cool character from the appendices, and his story with the Long Winter and how it goes is just insanely badass. But then we got news, we got trailers, and we got the film. And it's everything we feared it'd be. The story of Helm Hammerhand has pretty much been fully scrapped and is now told through the eyes of his unnamed daughter, who only appears in 2 lines from the appendices. I'm not kidding. She is mentioned once, and that is when Wolf asks for her hand in marriage. So why did you do it? Why fuck with what you apparently hold so dear? Is there anything I liked about this film? Not really. Anything good was either too short or was ripped from something far superior. Seriously, I'm actually struggling here. The scene where Helm gets to go full badass boss mode is awesome, but we see it for maybe a grand total of 5 minutes. That should have been the whole film. Helm, it's his story. You have no creativity, you fucking hacks! You have done nothing but desecrate Tolkien's creation with your shitty intersectional feminism. Everything about this movie is just wrong. Okay, starting from the top. The animation is terribly inconsistent. But I guess that's expected, you know, when you have 60 separate studios animating your heap of trash. There is no consistency because it's impossible to do that with that many people. It gets to a point where it just gives you a headache, and it's because of how often the animation style changes. Compare this film to something like Arcane. That is beyond beautiful.
And you give me this?
To go along with the flawed animation, we have very poor lighting. Why is there now a trend in Hollywood of never allowing us to see what's on screen, huh? Is it because you know it's shit, and you want to try and block us from seeing what you have to show us? Turn up the brightness, for fuck's sake! The voice work in this film is decent enough, I guess. There was no standout performance except when Helm gets to go do his thing. The soundtrack is forgettable with no standout moment for the score, except when Rohan's fanfare is played to stir those oh so important member berries. The characters that are memorable in this film are for completely the wrong reasons, and the characters we want to remember are forgettable because they don't have enough time to shine or show off what they can do. Helm, Haleth, and Hammer are so underutilized. Haleth literally gets killed when showing off about killing a Mumakil, and Hammer gets captured and killed because he has an old horse that can't keep up with the escaping Rohirrim. Archive voice footage of the late Christopher Lee is used for a 1-line cameo at the end of the film. How fucking dare you? But the biggest culprit is Hera. She is the biggest problem because she isn't even meant to be here and does nothing but detract from the other characters. She was never named because she wasn't important. People bitching about how Helm doesn't listen to her. She isn't a warrior. She's never seen conflict. Yet of course everyone dies because these incompetent men should have done as they were told by her. Many of the creators have stated she isn't a Mary Sue, the film isn't woke, she isn't a warrior princess. Her final fight is literally her riding out wearing a wedding dress to face Wolf. She literally yells that she is the bride to no man. Not a warrior princess, my ass. Can I truthfully praise anything about this movie aside from Helm? I'm really struggling to think of something. The only thing that I can actually think of, and it is kind of a nice change to see, is that Hera does actually love her brothers and her cousins. She isn't a bitch around them. But it's just brushed aside in the end because Haleth and Hammer, like I said, they die way too soon. And Freylof is absent for most of the film. Seriously, how did they fuck up something? A story from the appendices that only takes up a few pages.
Can't do anything to those books. Those books are gonna stand. We can't ruin them, so it's nothing woke about this, guys.
Well, you managed to mess it up anyway. When you take everything into account, The rushed animation by 60 Studios, the forgettable score, the lack of story for a forced insert character, and the suspicious timing of the film's release, it becomes blatantly obvious what War of the Rohirrim is. It is a shameless cash grab and something only done to retain distribution rights, trying to capitalise on the nostalgia from Peter Jackson's trilogy and the failure of Amazon by saying, hey, we're faithful. Come over here. We'll do it right. Trust us over here. The main question I've seen being asked is War of the Rohirrim worse than Rings of Power? All answers I've seen to that question are that it isn't, because, I mean, let's be honest, Rings of Power isn't exactly a high bar to try and clear. But I've got to be honest, I think this one hurts more for me. Rings of Power was created by people who had malicious intent from the get-go, and if anything, we could at least all laugh at the incompetence of it. Rohirrim is made by someone who initially helped give us one of the most beloved cinematic trilogies of all time. Philippa, how did you drop the ball on this so badly? What happened to the woman who loved and revered the Lord of the Rings so deeply? I'll tell you what happened. She went to Hollywood and got suckered in by The Message. All you've done with this, Philippa, is prove that you can't be trusted anymore. I could have forgiven some of this, though. I could have forgiven a lot of it if it wasn't such a bore. If it was just a mediocre at best film, then it would likely have just been forgotten. But it's boring, and it overstays what little welcome it had to begin with, and then just keeps on going. Prime example. After Helm tells Hera that Rohan no longer needs him because it has her, and he sacrifices himself in his epic last stand, the film still has an hour left and basically fuck all happens. The worst thing of all personally though is that there's an emotion I have for this film that I think's worse than anger, and it's a feeling of disappointment. It's a feeling that's settled deep in my heart and gives me a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. You know when you were a kid and your parents were telling you off for something that you'd done because you were being naughty? There was the anger from them that you did something wrong, but there was that disappointed feeling from them as well that I always dreaded more because it was the feeling that I'd let someone that I loved down. That is what I have now. I feel let down. And if the creators of War of the Rohirrim don't feel bad for that, for letting so many down, then you're truly too far gone. You are too far gone to give a shit about the people that you should be trying to please. The fans. Not shills like Nerd of the Rings.